Alright everyone, welcome to lecture 11 in the series. This is the final lecture for semester 1. So congratulations, we've all made it through. We hope you're feeling a little bit smarter and a little bit wiser about all things business and the law. And we hope we've been able to provide some valuable educational content to you on something that can seem a little bit difficult at first, but really once you understand the foundational core concepts, as you've seen, it's really not that difficult. It's not rocket science, right? And so we hope that we've been able to explain the foundational core concepts of business and the law, specifically the interaction of law in your business, so that you're able to practically navigate those matters with your legal professionals better. That was always the mission with producing this educational material, and we're delivering it to you, is to allow you to be better clients. We're not training lawyers here. We never intended on that. We wanted to make entrepreneurs and business people smarter about the law as it interacts with their business. And yeah, we hope we've been able to do that for you, and that you all derive some value from it. We're very grateful for the opportunity to do this and to provide this to you, and we're going to continue to do it into semester 2. The aim of semester 1 was always to build the core foundational concepts of the law, so that you can start to reason as your lawyers and legal professionals are, and really bridge that gap between your skill set as an entrepreneur and what your lawyers are doing, so you can communicate with each other more effectively, grow your businesses, grow your wealth, grow your valuations, and do more valuable transactions over time. That was always the point of this educational content. Good news, we're done, and we're ready to move on to semester 2. In semester 2, we'll build on the foundational knowledge that we've established in semester 1, and we'll dive into a lot of the core concepts at a deeper level. And we'll keep it practical, obviously, as ever. The guide is always practical. That is always our intention and our objective, because a lot of these matters can seem a little bit philosophical or esoteric. We don't want to get carried away with that. We always want to keep it practical so you can find real world use out of it as you do business. And yeah, in semester 2, we'll do interesting stuff like we'll compare and contrast jurisdictions that you probably thought were very different, and then we'll show you why the public perception of them, or the perception of online of them, is actually quite different than the reality of those jurisdictions very often. Yeah, and then we got plenty of interesting stuff in semester 2. So we hope you stay tuned. We'll continue to do our best to provide practical legal education to business people and entrepreneurs, as ever. That's our goal, and yeah, we'll do our best to deliver value for you guys. All right? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, anyway, so that's the end of semester 1. In this lecture, we're going to just review all the material and go over the core concepts and just wrap it all up, really. But before we get into that, I want to take a 1,000-foot view of the knowledge from semester 1, and I want to look at it as it relates to not only your business but your motivations and your drive and your reason for doing all of it, because it seems like online, at least in the year 2026, a lot of business has become somewhat performative, and we understand the reasons for that. There are good marketing and promotion reasons for that, and there is a performative nature that is required to a lot of business. But if you're not in touch with the core motivations for why you're engaging with this content, then you're not going to get the most value out of it. So what do I mean by that? Well, When you see business people online and they're telling you about how to do certain structures, or they're telling you about legal concepts, they're often telling you what to do. They're telling you to copy them. They're telling you follow these steps, do this, do as I've done. And when you're engaging with that kind of content and you don't understand your own motivations and your own goals and your own ambition, then you tend to just follow it blindly. And that's a recipe for disaster. So our aim here was always to give you the core foundational concepts and the foundational knowledge so that when you're presented with any legal issue, you can reason through it from first principles and then solve it appropriately according to your own unique facts and circumstances. But if you're just looking at influencers and going, oh, he's got a Lambo, or he's got a jet, or he's standing on a yacht in front of all these beautiful women, I'll just copy his thing, then yeah, it's a problem. And it's the kind of behavior that gets founders and entrepreneurs into unnecessary trouble legally. So I guess what I'm saying is we want to start this lecture with a simple question, which is, are you doing this to perform, or are you doing this to grow, right? Because your business, your structure, your property, your assets, your transactions, are they in service of you, or are they heavily curated suffering? Because, I mean, look, perhaps you've achieved some level of success if you're watching this, presumably. Maybe you've achieved more success than you've ever thought possible. Maybe you've got some money, maybe you've got a lot of money, maybe you've got more money than you ever thought possible. You've got success, maybe you're famous online, maybe you yourself have an ultra glamorous lifestyle. And you're hustling and you're optimizing, you're listening to the podcasts, you're following the influencers, you're chasing more and more business growth. But it's moving forward, it's marching on, as they say. And to be sure, time is the only asset that you can't get back. You can't refinance it, you can't allocate it, you can't reassign ownership, control, and benefit to it, right? So what we want to do in this lecture is we want to zoom out, 1,000-foot view, right? And we want to ask the most foundational question of all, which is, what is the law? We spend a lot of time talking about law and business, but we want to step right back and ask ourselves, what is the law actually? What is it, right? And the best basic core definition of the law, the thing we've been studying for these last 11 lectures, is that it's only a shared hallucination. That's it, right? It's bits of paper, it's numbers in bank accounts, it's jurisdictions as arbitrary lines drawn on maps, and it's nothing more than a shared hallucination. And I think that when you take a 1,000-foot view and you really zoom out, you'll see that we're in a universe that's teeming and exploding with galaxies and black holes and planets and wonder. It's infinite and it's amazing. And I think that people can forget that, and then they lose perspective on their own lives and what they're doing as they get stuck in the day-to-day of these transactions. So you'll see people arguing online about the right trust setup or the right jurisdiction, and whether they should set up in the Channel Islands or Liechtenstein, and completely ignoring the miracle of the universe and life that's around them. And these arguments, you get sucked into them, but they don't matter, right? Ultimately, none of it matters. And it doesn't matter the way that your ego wants it to matter. Remember, your company is just a legal fiction. That's Law School 101. That is the core definition of what a company is. The law is a shared hallucination, and a company is a legal fiction. It's not real, right? It's in the name, it's in the description. It is a legal fiction. It's stapled to a registry document somewhere, right? Your signatory authority, it's just, it's a bunch of other humans, a bunch of other glorified apes agreeing to respect it. So don't worship these legal abstractions. In semester 2, we're going to go deeper into them, but always remember to maintain perspective. None of it's real. They're just legal abstractions. They're not physics, right? If you want a real growth hack or optimization, then stop building your identity out of your business and these transactions, if that's indeed what you're doing. Stop treating growth like it's some sort of salvation, and be honest with your own motivations about why you're engaging with this content. We're here to help you keep the money you've made. In order to do that, you have to understand the foundational concepts of law. It's necessary, right? But if you're engaging with this content because of fear, because the fear of losing is overriding the love of keeping, then that's not a strategy. Fear is not a strategy. We've really encouraged in semester 1 everybody to use the law or to understand the law like a tool set, right? It's not a religion. You can think of it as a blank canvas. When you're doing these transactions and you're growing your business, you've got a blank canvas and you can pick any tool that you want. You can paint any painting that you want. You're an artist, right? The law provides a rich and complete tool set for you to create anything that you want in the abstract, okay? But it's not a substitute for a personality. If you're really honest about your motivations, whether it's the fear of loss or the love of gain, then you'll be able to reason better and you'll be able to paint a really beautiful painting, and you'll be able to build things that survive your day-to-day mood swings or survive whatever ancient philosophy, growth hack you've decided to integrate into your daily routine, right? You will paint a beautiful painting because the law provides those tools and that opportunity to you. And what's most important is if you're honest with your motivations. Love of keeping versus fear of losing, right? Then you'll make legal decisions and you'll build structures and you'll do transactions that will look sane in 5 or 10 years. I guess the point is, yeah, go out, make money, build beautiful things, paint an amazing artwork with the tools the law provides. Love people, break down, get back up, win, right? But don't confuse the scoreboard with your worth. All right, so this is the recap for semester 1. Everything we really covered throughout all of semester 1 was really one idea, but from different angles, let's say. So the first thing we wanted you to get comfortable with was, of course, again, ownership, control, and benefit, right? Remember, your average person thinks of ownership as one thing, typically, when you talk to them. They'll think of it as title, right? But that's just one element. We've got control, right, which is decisions, okay? And then we've got benefit, which is enjoyment, okay? So that is ownership, right? And you're going to start to think about assets and about transactions and about legal entities like that, right? So we're building the whole semester back up just to lock it into place in your minds so you can enter semester 2 competently, right? things. Ownership is not one thing. It's a bundle of three things, which the law lets you unbundle, right? So that's what owning an asset is. It's control, right? It's economic enjoyment and it's title. And then you'll see disaster will tend to happen in practice when people mix these three things up, or when they assume they're aligned properly when they're not, right? Okay, so the second principle that we got into in the first semester was the law recognizes two types of economic actors, right? Just two. They're the two ways that you're going to do business in the world according to the law, right? There are what? There are natural persons, right? And there are legal persons. That's it. That's the foundation of your toolkit, right? So a natural person is you, right? It's a human being, flesh and blood, skin and bones. It's got a lifespan. It's got emotions. It's got bad habits, right? And then you've got the legal persons, or the legal tools, let's say, right? And they're the legal vehicles that you're going to use to do business. So companies, trusts, foundations, partnerships, right? And they exist to hold rights and to allocate ownership, control, and benefit. You're going to allocate these elements to either legal persons or natural persons in practice, right? So here's the key thing, right? A legal tool is not you, right? If you treat it like it's you, the law will do the same. And then you will lose the protections that separation provides. So remember, the law ultimately cares about behavior, all right? It cares about behavior and patterns of behavior over time and facts and circumstances. And it tends to care about those things much more than fancy titles or what's written on some paperwork. How are people behaving over time? What's their behavior pattern? And what are the facts and circumstances? Okay, so then we moved into transactions. We started to understand that the law doesn't think in plans, right? It thinks in transactions, okay? So remember, the law thinks in transactions. That's how the law understands business. And that's what you're doing, right? As you grow your business, you're doing transactions. And what are transactions? Well, the transaction is it's the whole story you're trying to create. It's the thing you're trying to do. It's the end state you're trying to get to. But, right, more importantly in terms of the law is that transactions are just a series of chronological legal events. Legal events are the legal moves that you make, like a chess game, to get through the transaction. You'll do your legal moves, right? They're the legal events. So a transaction is just a series of legal events, right? We went through that, right? Chronological. That's how your lawyer is thinking about transactions. When you ask him to do something, right, he's going to conceptually, he's saying, all right, what transaction is that? And what legal events have to happen to fully execute that transaction properly. So the legal events are like the chess moves to get to the other side. That is the transaction. Right? Transactions are made up of a series of legal events. That's why you can't think of transactions, it's very important, as simple administration. They're a chain of legal events, right? And then each legal event is a state change. Okay, and we compared it to software, right? You execute a command to your legal professionals, right? The function runs, variables flip, and then with each event, the system that is your business is in some new state, okay? That's why you can get wrecked by things like a seemingly simple restructure or a seemingly simple share transfer, right? Because business people and entrepreneurs tend to only see the end state. They're goal motivated or goal orientated, right? And so they'll see the end state only, but they'll ignore the chain of legal events that have to happen to get to it. Okay. And then we asked a simple question, right? Why do lawyers ask annoying questions, right? And your lawyers obviously are not trying to be annoying. They're just trying to identify the legal events according to your own unique. Remember this one. This is the law. This is why you can't copy those influences, right? Facts and circumstances. Excuse me here. You have your own unique facts and circumstances. Everybody does. Even if you're in the same industry as someone else, or you're doing the same things, or you have the same assets, or you're interested in the same things, you can't just copy other people's structures because everybody has their own unique facts and circumstances. That's what the law cares about, facts and circumstances, okay? So, given that ownership and having things is a bundle of three rights, a bundle of three ideas, right? And then you can unbundle those ideas and divide them up into natural persons and legal persons, right? Whenever you're doing any business in the world, you're doing transactions. Anything is a transaction. All transactions are a set of chronological legal events, right? And everyone has to do their own transactions and divide up ownership, control, and benefit to different natural persons and legal persons in their own way, according to their own facts and circumstances. That's why you can't copy the guy with the Lambo online, okay? So with all of that in mind, the correct way to work with your lawyers and good legal questions are not, is it legal to, right? They are not good legal questions. There is no answer to that question in the abstract. A better question, a better way to interact with your lawyers is to ask questions like, under what facts and circumstances, right, is this possible? Give me some options. Give me the risk factors. And then the lawyer can work with that. Okay, then we moved into the liability trap, let's call it, that business people and founders will walk into often without noticing, right? That was why being helpful can get you sued. Because business people will often, they'll confuse being allowed to act with being responsible for outcomes. So remember, once you step into a role, even if it's informally, you can inherit the duties of that role, even if your name is not on any paperwork, even if you have no official title, even if you're not officially getting compensated, or even getting compensated at all. Remember, the law cares about patterns of behavior, okay? So it cares about what you're doing and how you're acting over time and what the specific facts and circumstances are. And it cares about that most, certainly a lot more than anything else, right? So if you act like management or if you act like a director, then you will be treated like management or you'll be treated like a director. And then if that's so, then you shouldn't be shocked if liability follows you according to that. All right, so then we went into, it was the lie of limited liability in the next lecture. So to be clear, to be sure, limited liability is real, right? And it's very useful and it's foundational to business law, but it is conditional. And the condition in plain English is you only get the shield of limited liability if you respect the shield. So what does respecting the shield mean? It means maintain the separation. Do it. Build a fact pattern. Execute behavior over time. Act as though the company is separate to you and do that consistently over time. Don't mix money. Don't lie about who's deciding. Don't sign anything personally just to be helpful. Don't run the company like your wallet, right? Limited liability is not a magic spell, and the law is not stupid. It's made up of real human beings, smart ones, right? So you can think of limited liability as a contract with the legal system. If you keep your side and you act over time as if the company is separate to you, which it is, and you establish a pattern of behavior over time that shows true separation, then the system will also keep its side of the bargain, okay? You'll be protected by that separation. Okay, and then we attacked the influencer disease, which we touch on a lot in this series. It was the motivation for starting it. We asked, why is copying structures or copying gurus, or copying people online, influencers, why is that a terrible strategy when you're doing transactions? Okay, so when you copy a structure with no proper context, it's like buying a parachute because you saw someone skydive one time, right? And then you wear it into the ghetto and you think you're going to be safe from a knife attack. Okay, structures are built for unique facts and circumstances. Okay, so everybody has different scale, different complexity, different risk profiles, time horizons. They have different needs and wants. They have different dependents, right? So most business people, when they copy people online, what they're doing is they're copying the shape of the setup or the shape of the transaction, but they don't understand the purpose or the constraints, okay? And then that led directly into our discussion, our lecture on jurisdiction, right, which is very important and directly tied to the previous lecture about copying structures. So jurisdiction is a risk variable, right? And then the main disease that we'll see online is that people will go, oh, low tax jurisdiction, that's a win automatically, right? That's toddler logic, okay? So what matters is the interaction between jurisdictions that you're exposed to. Where are you? Where's your company? Where are the assets? Where's the payer? Where's the customer? Where's the bank? Where's enforcement? Where are the courts? Where's reporting, right? So, and then we gave an example and we showed why cross-border withholding can make you poorer, even in a low tax place. A place that is low tax on the label can still hammer you with extra taxes if the interaction between all the jurisdictions you're involved with, if that interaction is not aligned, then somewhere that is seemingly low tax can be much worse for you. And somewhere that is generally bitched about online as super high tax could actually be better for you in theory. It just depends on your unique facts and circumstances, okay? Remember, the law cares about source rules and treaties and classifications and reporting, okay? That's why that can happen. Okay, and then in the next lecture, we went into property rights, conceptually, right? So, do I ever really own anything? Because ownership is not just title. We understand that now. Ownership is enforceable rights. Property is not the thing. It's not the thing. Property is the claim. All things are subject to many competing claims, right? And enforceability of those claims will sit on a spectrum, okay? So if you're in a transaction and a counterparty, like a tenant, for example, has very strong rights according to the jurisdiction, then you can hold title and still feel completely powerless, right? Because control and benefit are constrained by the jurisdiction, by the legal environment. That's a practical reality of doing transactions, right? So, speaking of practical, we then went to debt and equity. We made it practical again, right? And look, most founders tend to think of money into their company as just money into a company, right? But the law treats it very differently. And it depends on the label and the behavior. So you've got two options, really, broadly. You've got debt and you've got equity. And equity says, I'm taking risk. I'm last in line in a worst case scenario. And then debt says, the company owes me. I'm a creditor. I have a higher claim, right? And then the choice that you make in terms of getting money into a legal entity between debt and equity will affect everything. It's one of the most important choices you will make in your business. It affects cash extraction. It affects how you take benefit, tax treatment, insolvency outcomes, etc., right? Okay, so that's semester one. They're the core concepts that we went through. Now you've got a good foundation and we'll go into semester two, okay? if we had to take semester 1 and synthesize it even more, if you were to remember nothing else from semester 1, then remember this, right? Your structure for your business is a map of power, let's say. So it's allocating who can decide, who carries risk, who gets paid, who gets blamed, who gets trapped when something goes wrong, right? Most people don't lose money because they're criminals or they've committed a crime. They lose it because their structure doesn't match their behavior or their facts and circumstances, right? And then some external stress event will reveal it. So the core mental model for this semester, because we love mental models, remember, right? For every asset, think ownership, title, control, decisions, benefit, enjoyment. When you're walking down the street, you see a building, that's an asset. Think OCB. When you see a company, right, that's an asset. Think who has title, who has decision authority, who has economic enjoyment from this company, right? For every change in your business, right, think that's a transaction. Okay, and then what are the legal events that need to happen to execute that transaction? What's irreversible? What triggers tax? What triggers reporting? What changes control and benefit, right? For every structure that you see, if something's being pitched to you online, okay, as the be-all, end-all solution to all your problems, think, what stress event would break this according to my facts and circumstances? Death or divorce or dispute, right? And is there anything useful in what's being pitched to me? And what would I need to amend with my legal professionals and my tax advisors to make this useful according to my own unique facts and circumstances, right? Okay, for every influencer hack that you see online, ask yourself, what problem is it solving? Does it solve any problem for me at all? What is it going to cost? What could it break? What are the second order effects? What is this transaction? Or what are the series of transactions? What are the legal events in this transaction, right? Whenever you see any of these influencer hacks, start to think about these foundational concepts, because that is the promise of this course, if there's any at all, right? We're not teaching you to become a better lawyer. We're not teaching lawyers. We're not even teaching you to become a lawyer at all, right? You're a business person. What you need to do is stop being a legal amateur. You need to start being a better client, right? So you can supervise your professionals, so you can hire the best professionals, supervise them properly, ask good questions, engage with them competently, and spot traps early, okay? The game is not making money. That part you're already good at. The game is to keep it, okay? So that's semester 1. Next semester, we're going to go deeper into governance, authority chains, reporting, real-world transaction design, specific jurisdictions, etc. All right, and we'll always remember, even as we go through semester 2, we've got to keep in the forefront of our minds that these are tools that we're working with, and that we're aiming to make things that we love. Okay, our motivation is to make things, is to paint a painting that we're proud of, that's beautiful, that we love, with the abstract tools that the law provides. They're abstract tools, to be sure. They're not physical tools, but they are still tools, okay? And you're still making things. You're still painting something. Ultimately, manipulating your wealth through these abstract tools of the law. It's a creative act. This is art. You're an artist. That's how we want you to start thinking of yourselves as we go into semester 2. Okay, so with that, I want to leave you with a quote by the greatest record producer of all time, Rick Rubin. All art is a work in progress. It's helpful to see the piece we're working on as an experiment, one in which we can't predict the outcome. Whatever the result, we will receive useful information that will benefit the next experiment. If you start from the position that there is no right or wrong, no good or bad, and creativity is just free play with no rules, it's easier to submerge yourself joyfully in the process of making things. We're not playing to win, we're playing to play, and ultimately, playing is fun. Perfectionism gets in the way of fun. A more skillful goal might be to find comfort in the process.